Hey, brand builders, ready to take your brand to the next level? I'm Dana Ammons, and welcome to the Brand Blueprint. Welcome back to the Brand Blueprint podcast. I'm your host, Dana Ammons, and today I am thrilled to be joined again by Trish Lindo. Trish is a seasoned expert in personal branding and digital strategy and has an incredible track record working with some of the top names in media, including LinkedIn, BuzzFeed, and Oprah's Own Network. We actually had Trish on, and she shared a wealth of knowledge with us about building a strong LinkedIn brand for founders and brand owners. And I'm excited to even dive deeper today. So in this segment, we're actually going to talk about AI. And AI is a hot topic right now. Everybody's talking about it, but specifically, we want to talk about AI and its impact on branding. Trish will shed light on how AI is changing the game for personal branding, what founders should know about these changes, and how LinkedIn and other platforms might play a role in the AI-driven future of branding. Trish, welcome back.
Well, thank you so much, Dana, for having me. This is a true honor to come back, on your show. So I feel like an MVP, so
You
I want to
definitely
thank
are.
you.
You are actually, you know what? That's actually a great point and a perfect time to recognize you and give you your flowers. You are our first repeat guest, and hopefully more repeat appearances to come. But we had so much to talk about. We weren't able
Yeah.
to get it all on screen the last time, so I felt it so necessary to get you back in studio on screen and talking to our audience again.
Well, thank you. I am so grateful to be here and thank you for the opportunity. And, I think the conversations that we're having are going to help so many business owners out there. And so, yeah, thank you.
All right.
Let's
Well,
do it.
look. Last time we were together, we were supposed to have a quick question and answer section that we call the rapid fire section on this interview show. And I got so excited about talking to you about all of the things that we talked about the last time that I completely skipped it. So this time we're going to actually spend some time getting to know you a little bit better in our rapid fire questions and answer segment. Are you ready to get started?
I'm so ready. Let's do
All
it.
right, let's do it. All right, so to start this off, and I love to always, kind of let our audience know what part of the country we are calling in from. I'm on the East Coast in Charlotte, North Carolina, and Trish is
I'm on the West Coast or the left coast, as some of you may say, in the Bay Area.
definitely, and we are calling in, I would say at a pretty decent time of day. But to start our rapid fire question off, the first one we always like to ask: coffee or tea?
Tea for sure. I do not drink coffee. It dries out the skin.
Ah, love the beauty tip there. Now tell me on the tea, just a little bit deeper, what flavor tea are you most likely to make in the morning?
Most likely to make ginger tea. I try to have something that is herb related
Yeah,
with good adaptogenic benefits.
I
So
love that.
I do ginger every now and then. I do a green tea. All of that helps to keep the skin looking good and make sure that we stay healthy. And I'm all about wellness. So
I
yes.
love that. Hey, shout out to all of the tea fans out there. I count myself among them as well. I'm a green
Yes.
tea person. I was a coffee person at one point. I like to tell people
Yeah.
that coffee was something that I did really love at one point in my life. But I think I frankly followed the crowd into the coffee craze. I was a graduate of the mid 90s and entered into the corporate ranks when Starbucks was just making their name. And so that was the in vogue thing to do when you worked in the 90s and early
Yep.
2000s was walk around with a Starbucks cup, which is definitely what I did. And to your point, I quickly realized, I think over time, the benefits or actually the negative aspects of drinking so much coffee, which was skin, complexion, and for me, stomach.
Yeah.
So I count now tea as a actual reversal of a lot of those issues. No more stomach issues, very few skin or hydration issues, and more importantly, I still get the same kind of caffeine rush that I, used to get from coffee from green tea. So
Yes.
those of you who haven't tried the tea craze, I suggest you may get out and, try a little tea next time you pull up into a Starbucks.
I always feel fancy when I'm drinking tea too. I don't know why.
Exactly. I agree. I agree. There's something about holding that little tea glass and stirring that little spoon that makes you feel a little bit, just a little bit bougie.
A little bit.
So let's now. Next question is for you. Favorite place to unwind? Where do you like to unwind?
Favorite place to unwind? I'm gonna be honest, it has to be my couch. You know,
I love it.
I'm out and about a lot. I do a lot of networking, so I'm always out and about. But when I have some time for myself, I am on the couch.
Yeah,
I've got your Netflix or Prime on. I'm watching my favorite show or something like that, just to unwind. And with a cup of tea in hand or something like that.
I
So
love that.
yeah, like to keep it simple.
All right. Now, let's stay in the same kind of mode since you got the couch and you're drinking tea. Are you a morning person or are you a night owl?
I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
I get better as the day goes on. So I
I love that.
apologize because you're not getting the best of me right now.
I love that.
But yeah, I've never been a morning person. However, I have trained myself to be, up and at 'em. I'm up every morning at 7:30 a.m.
Yeah.
And I've trained myself to do that because obviously work, life, that kind of
Agreed.
thing. But I get better. I'm better after noon. And then, I can stay up easily until midnight, 1 o'clock. And that's where I get like all my ideas and like, I'm like,
Same.
oh, that's right. Yeah.
Same here. So I am a natural night owl as well.
Yeah.
I like to say that life trained me to be a night owl, right? And then I trained
Mhm.
myself to get up in the morning, right? Like
Yeah.
that's probably like really what happened, right? Like I
Yeah.
find myself more productive to you point as the day goes on, more creative,
Yes.
typically in the evening versus the morning, and really more
Mhm.
motivated. Like I was having this conversation in the gym the other day with a guy who goes in the gym at 5:15, and he actually comes back and works out again at 6 when I come in. And I'm always
Oh,
like curious, like, man, not only are you doing 2 a days, but you get up at 5:15 every morning and do it. And he said, yeah, this has just been part of my routine for most of my life. I've
wow.
always gotten up. And I thought to myself, like, that's probably why I'm not a morning person, right? Because when I have
Yeah.
an opportunity to sleep in, I take it, right? Like when I
Same.
go on vacation, I sleep
Same.
past 6 o'clock every morning. So there's no
Same.
doubt that I am definitely a night person. I totally identify with that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I've tried a couple times to get up first thing in the morning and go to the gym. Does not work for me.
Yep.
If you see me at the gym before at least 4 p.m., know that I'm being held hostage because there's no way I'm there.
Just come over and say, "Hey, Trish, blink once or blink twice if the person's nearby." Like,
Totally, totally. Yeah, I'm not doing
I
it.
love that. All right, now, given your technical expertise, you've worked with some really cool companies in BuzzFeed, LinkedIn, etc. You've been around a lot of, I'm sure, geeks and nerds that are really just get all over, advice around tech gadgets. So,
Yeah.
if you had to name one gadget, one piece of technology that you can't live without, that you absolutely have to have, what is it?
That one's kind of tricky because I feel that our phones are one of our biggest things that we can have,
Mm,
accessible.
hmm
I'm on my phone a lot because
hmm
I post content, I'm creating content. So I use my phone to basically give me access to the world outside. So I'm using various apps to create content. I'm on TikTok, I'm on IG, I'm on Threads, I'm on LinkedIn.
hmm
So without my phone, I don't even know what I would do because it keeps me plugged in. So I consider that the biggest piece of tech that I think we all have access
Yep.
to.
Yep.
And, you think back 20 years ago, like we couldn't even have, we had just kind of started, but to think that you can really run your entire business just from the palm of your hand, it's incredible. It's
Yep.
absolutely extraordinary. Our ancestors would be like, y'all are crazy. Like,
Yeah.
that's impossible. You know?
Yeah, exactly, right, because especially if you think about the younger generation is not just using their phone to stay abreast and engage, but in many
Exactly.
cases, they're using their phone as their hustle, right? Like, they're getting the
Yeah,
bag with their phone, right? Which our ancestors
exactly.
would definitely be like, "What you talking about? Like, you making money with
Exactly.
that? Like, no way," right?
Yeah. Yeah, all of it is on there. Your life is on there. Your
Yep,
crypto, your apps, your social
yep.
media, your news, your email, building your business. It's all on our phone. So
No,
I
it's
don't
such
know
a great
where
point.
where many of us would be without it, to be
Yeah,
honest.
I
So
love it. That is such a great point. Now, wrapping up this section, one piece of advice or one question I always like to ask, and this is actually a question I personally ask in conversations across the course of my life, which is, what is the best advice you've ever received?
Mm. The best advice I've ever received probably would be to be fearless in the pursuit of your dreams.
Mm, mm,
And I know that that one may sound like, yeah, okay, but I think that and I'll speak for myself, when you're a Black woman, a young Black woman, and you're coming up, and there aren't a lot of people who look like you, it's
mhm.
very easy to sort of kind of be like, I don't know, I don't know if this is what I can do, if this is possible for me. So, I am the type of person that I literally jump off cliffs and ask questions later,
I
you
love
know,
that.
because I try not to overthink. I try to force myself to do things that scare me, or things that people think like, I don't know if you should be doing that. And I'm like, oh yeah, watch me, So, and I do have like a lot of friends and family who tell me that I'm fearless. And I'm like, sometimes I don't know if I'm like fearless or if I'm just like a daredevil, like,
Yeah.
but yeah, in the pursuit of ideas and dreams that I have, I'm absolutely fearless.
I love that. And I love that advice because you hear people say, um, in many ways, "Oh yeah, don't be afraid. You shouldn't be afraid of anything." But I think hearing you say and be vulnerable and say, I'm not sure if I am the person that my friends and family describe as fearless, right? I just know how I approach
Yeah.
life, right? And how I approach it. And I think you're right. I take a similar approach to not just trying to do something that I absolutely am afraid of doing, but trying to do it on a regular basis, right? Like
Yes.
for me, I try to make it part of my routine. Like on a very regular basis, do
Yeah.
things that I am very uncomfortable doing, or I am
Mhm.
very unsure in terms of my ability or capabilities to do. But
Yeah.
I also find it exhilarating, to your point, to kind of jump off that edge, right? It is
Yeah.
a bit of a daredevil mentality. And maybe to a certain degree, right, you could argue that as a Black man and a Black woman living in today's society, that many of us have to be daredevils
Yeah.
to dive into
Yeah.
these areas of expertise that we're not necessarily, invited into to participate in. And in many cases, and sometimes we're, frankly blocked from
Yeah.
being, from taking part in. So I
Yeah.
love that advice. I think, if anybody is looking for inspiration and thinking about kind of ways to move forward in life, that is one piece of advice that can always help you, which is just don't be afraid to
Yeah.
try, right?
Yeah.
Like the worst thing that can happen is you can fail and then you can just go try it again, right? Like there's
Right.
nothing about trying
Exactly.
it again, right? So I
So
love
true.
that. So look, thank you for humoring us with our rapid fire question and answer segment. I think we have
Yeah.
learned so much more about you, Trish, which is always fascinating. So now
Yay.
I want to get to your expertise because you are
Yeah.
definitely here to serve up that really, really dope knowledge that you have. And I want to be able to share it with our audience. And so let's get ready to start on our main interview.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So to start off, last time we were here, you gave us a very, just really in-depth explanation
Yeah.
around branding with regard to personal branding, right? And how you position your personal brand on platforms like LinkedIn and the different tools that you can use to enhance your personal branding. And
Yeah.
now we know that, the one of the hottest new trends and technology movements in our culture right now is AI. And artificial intelligence is everywhere. And it
Yes.
is primarily being pitched as an opportunity to essentially fast forward, right? To speed
Yeah.
up the evolution and the development and innovation that is happening across multiple facets of society. And so
Yes.
no other area than personal branding, right? And so I
Yeah.
wanted to have you come back and talk about AI as it relates to personal branding, because one of the things that I'm already starting to see early in to this adoption of AI is almost over reliance of AI as
Mm.
a tool in the marketing and branding space, right?
Yeah.
And it's creating content that many of us are seeing clearly, transparently what it is, a lot of the content feels very unorganic, very canned, very scripted. And even though it's easy to create and it's pretty seamless to upload, it doesn't always mean it's the best tool or the
Right.
right tool to use for personal branding. So just starting there, talking big picture, how do you see AI changing the way branding is being approached, and specifically on platforms like LinkedIn?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. I think, first of all, I think personal branding is just that. It's called personal branding for a reason, which means that it is your story and it is your journey that you should be sharing to build your personal brand. It's all about storytelling, right? Those original stories that only can come from you. So what I think is happening right now with AI, and this is not going to be a conversation about bashing AI or anything. AI is great. Okay, let's
Yep,
let's get that.
correct.
It's great.
Yep.
However, I think we have to use it in a way to enhance our work instead of using it to create our work, right? So, I one of the ways that, I use AI. So, if you're creating a pitch deck, you can give the your AI, whichever one you're using, the information to create a framework for you.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you must go back and check your work. Remember when you were in school and your teacher was like,
Yep.
check your work, because it is pulling from information. Sometimes, AI will hallucinate, and so you will not have the correct information. Or sometimes you have to kind of realize that it's speaking in a tone that is not yours,
Yep.
because it is artificial intelligence.
Correct.
So what you have to do, you have to go back over it and sort of kind of refine it in your voice. Sometimes I use ChatGPT or Perplexity and I say, okay, now make it more personable or now make it more human, because no one talks like that. You know, so people are using AI to create their posts, to create their video content, to create brand strategies that they may
Hmm.
have if they're launching products. And listen, I think that AI is absolutely a must, especially if you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur who maybe it's yourself and maybe just a couple other team members. It helps with the workload. It helps to cut through the minutia of the work that you have to do while you're building your business. Some people have used AI to generate, outreach emails that
Hmm.
can potentially lead to more business, you
Yep.
know. But the key in all of this is that you must go back and look at the work that AI has generated for you and make sure that it's in the voice that you want it to be. The tone is correct. Because sometimes, AI will push out information that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right because I know for a fact a year ago this
Yep.
thing happened. So you must check your work. Don't ever use AI and just put it out there.
Wow, that was a really important point. Can we hear that again?
The key in all of this is that you must go back and look at the work that AI has generated for you and make sure that it's in the voice that you want it to be. The tone is correct. Because sometimes, AI will push out information that you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right because I know for a fact a year ago this
Yep.
thing happened. So you must check your work. Don't ever use AI and just put it out there,
And just literally upload it.
just
And let's
upload.
talk about that too, Trish, because that's such a great point. I mean, you just like outlined, I think, three or four of the very important must-haves when you are engaging AI, right?
Yeah,
And the goal is to make AI sound, look, and appear authentic, right?
right.
You're not purposely using this tool to make it sound like, look like, and feel like something that's not real. You're not
Right.
using AI to broadcast to the world, hey, this is AI. Most of us are using AI to accomplish and complete work and tasks that we ultimately want people to understand or feel like came from us. right?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is important in the process and in the exchange. So, Trish, talk a little bit more about some of the practical ways and tips that people can use AI but maintain their authenticity. How do they like make it feel, sound, and look organic, but at the
Mhm.
same time use it efficiently, like to your point, to get
Yeah.
stuff done? Because you and I know as a solo entrepreneur, you're
Yeah.
trying to move as fast as you can and get as much stuff as you can get done
Yeah.
as quickly as possible. So how do
Yeah.
you make it sound more organic and feel and look more organic?
Yeah, for sure. I think it depends on your use case for it. So, if you're creating content, I'll start off with that. If you're
Mhm.
creating content on your social platforms and you're leveraging AI, then you should first and foremost make sure that it aligns with your strategy, your content creation strategy, right? So, if you've got posts that are going up on LinkedIn or on IG or Threads
Mhm.
or Facebook or something like that, you want to make sure that you're like, hey, I'm writing about X, and what I want to convey is X.
Mhm.
You want
Mhm.
to give AI as much information as possible. So you want to say, write me. It is AI is something that you have to tell it what to do.
Yep.
It's not
Yep.
just going to create whatever you want. You have to give it instructions. So you say, write me in the tone that is friendly and write me something that is engaging, that will lead to potentially more people asking questions. So the more information that you give AI, the better the return, I guess I would say, on your investment is.
Yep.
So that's the biggest thing I think that a lot of people don't realize. The other way that I think you can also utilize AI, and if you're like me and you're like, hey, I kind of already know I know how to write, like I know like what I'm doing, then ask it to give you an outline. Be like, here's the project that I'm working on. Here's what I'm thinking. Give it all the elements. Even if you have like a little blurb
Mhm.
or an idea that you may think, actually have it say, hey, can you create an outline for me? Because I'm getting ready to do this thing in the next couple of weeks. I only have ideas. Here are the ideas that I have. Can you give me an outline? So now you're using that outline as a framework to create, the final product, whatever that is for you in terms of
I love
content
that.
and that sort of thing. So I would say that's the best way to use it, especially if it's not something that you're used to doing all the time. If you're a person who's not using AI right now, that's a really great place to start.
Yep.
There's plenty of us out there who use it a lot, and it's a muscle, right?
Mhm.
So you're like, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing. But what I like to do with my work is to reach out to the people who may not be using this on a regular basis. They're like, oh, AI, yeah, I keep hearing about it, but I can't be touching that stuff. But it can really help you to streamline workflows, processes, and potentially help you to get that to-do list done.
Exactly. Now,
Mhm.
Trish, great advice. And what I want you to kind of help clarify for people in that advice is a couple of key areas. Because early on, I think you said something that I want to reinforce probably 4 or 5 times during the course
Mhm.
of the show. One is you have to be explicit in your
Yeah.
direction to AI to
Mhm.
actually get the output that you're looking for. And
Right.
let's talk a little bit about that, Trish, because some
Yeah.
people, I think, there's this fear or there's this kind of misperception of how you have to communicate to AI and what is involved. So first, for our listeners, communicating with AI, that communication process, what you type in is called a prompt, right? And
Yes.
you'll hear the prompt word, throw it around a lot. What is your prompt? How did you set your prompt up? How
Right.
did you structure your prompt? And
Right.
everything that is structuring and setting up your prompt is what Trish just advised, which is
Right.
be specific, be clear, and
Yeah.
be completely and utterly exhaustive in all of the facets that you are
Right.
expecting an output. Meaning, give you a perfect example. You want AI to create a post for you
Mhm.
for election day. Today happens to be election day. You want AI to create an engaging post for your social media page so you can engage your customers, but also somehow work in election day.
Right.
Now, if you don't explicitly tell AI, number one, what election day it is.
Right.
Is it presidential election? Is it midterms? Are you in
Right.
another country, right? Is this South African elections? Is this in
Exactly.
Europe?
Yeah.
AI can't guess where you
Mhm.
are. And so I think one thing to make sure people understand, and Trish reinforced this, was the prompt or the instructions to AI need to be specific. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. Now, Trish, talk a little bit about, and maybe you even have some examples of how people can actually talk to or communicate or put that information in AI. Because I even have had
Mhm.
people say to me, "Well, I don't type that well," or I'm not really good with,
Yeah.
language and English. That's not really my forte. So I don't
Yeah.
really want to mess with AI. Tell them a little bit about the actual
Yeah.
engagement input part.
Yeah, absolutely. And, obviously we know that some of the AI that's out there does have the chat feature or
Right.
the voice feature that you can
Yep.
utilize. I believe ChatGPT, you do have to have the premium. I
Mhm.
believe I do think you have
To
to have
use
the
voice.
paid
Yep.
version,
Yep.
yeah, to use that. So, especially for people too who might have disabilities as well, those features are helpful. Where you're just using your voice
Correct.
to instruct or to prompt AI to do
Mhm.
exactly what you want it to do. I think the other thing too, and this is just something that I notice, and this could be a symptom of, this could be because I'm a woman, is that you have to be okay with asking questions or prompts repetitively.
Hey, Eloise, rewind that.
You have to be okay with asking questions or prompts repetitively,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So if you're the type of person, and I have a friend like this, it's why I kind of know like what this is. Like I have a friend who's like, well, I've already asked it like two questions. I'm like, well, ask it again. Like
Right.
tell it, that what you want. If it's not
Right.
giving you what you want,
Say that.
you have to
Yep.
prompt it again,
Yep.
give it more information.
Yep.
So I think it's sort of minimize that fear of asking AI for what you want,
Yep.
you know, and be direct about it as well. You got to be direct, give it as much color, I like to call it, as
Exactly.
possible. I think the other thing when you're, prompting AI is to realize, and this is just a sidebar for me, is that I'm nice to AI. I say thank you. I say please, because when they come for us 50 years from now, I want them to remember me that I was real nice. So, so, yeah. So what I do, I speak to AI just as a regular person so that it learns me. It learns how I communicate. And I do that because I do have the premium version of ChatGPT.
Yep.
I use
As I
others
do.
as well. So I speak to it in my normal tone
Yep.
so that when I tell it, hey, can you write this cover letter in my voice? It's like, I know exactly what you mean. So you can't, I would suggest not pretending to be somebody else when you're prompting AI. Try to be as much of yourself as possible. The more you are yourself, the more you ask it questions, the more it learns your behavior. And ultimately, that's how it actually becomes useful and
Yep.
helpful to you.
That's exactly right, and that's important, Trish, and our listeners in one other area, which is key to our listeners, which is your brand voice, right? So to
Mhm.
Trish's point, if you want AI to communicate as your brand, you need to communicate in your brand voice, or you need to give AI an outline of what your brand voice looks and
Yeah,
sounds like. And many
yeah,
of you have brand guides, you have this content already created. You
yeah,
just need to feed it into AI. And so one other misperception I've found with people who use AI from a branding side is that there is this kind of single use use case of AI where you just use it one time and then the next time you come back and use it, even if it's for a similar or same subject, you got to start all the way over again. And that's why I think both Trish and I would tell you that paying for the actual paid version of any
yeah,
of the AI platforms, I want to make
yeah.
sure everybody understands ChatGPT is not sponsoring the brand
Nothing,
blueprint. I am not
nothing.
getting any of those dollars. I wish I was, but I'm not. So this is not an endorsement for ChatGPT. However, I am losing ChatGPT, and I'm very comfortable letting my audience know that, because I'm a big believer. And if the service works for you and you find it to be quality, there's no reason to not endorse it or share it. And so for that reason, I would say definitely for whatever AI system you are using or platform you're using, I would definitely look into paying for whatever the premium service is, because one of the key premium benefits that everybody will want to have long term with AI is memory. And if you're paying for the premium access, your prompts are actually stored. And to Trisha's point, that means AI starts to learn your tendencies, who you are specifically as a person, and what you prefer. And I'll give you a perfect example. I use AI to write blogs right now. I've probably written about 40 blogs for my website. I've
Nice.
gotten to the point now with AI where I no longer feed it all of the additional supporting information I need to post a blog. So I used to say, post a blog on branding and AI, and then give me 30 hashtags, give me a 140 character meta search summary for SEO, give me 4 social media posts, one for Instagram, one for Facebook, one for Twitter, one for LinkedIn. Make sure each of those platforms are formatted to best practices for that platform. I
Mhm.
would write this really long, exhaustive prompt, right? And I would
Yeah.
get really good content, but it probably took me 10 to 15 minutes to literally put together the prompt. So
Yeah.
I want the audience to understand, first, prompts are not, they don't have to be fast, and they sometimes won't be. It may take you hours to stitch
Yeah.
together all of the information that you need to feed into AI to get what you're trying to get back out. So
Right.
anyway, after feeding this information into I then expected AI to kick out this great post, right? So the next time I came and did it, I wrote the whole explanation again. Now, 40 posts in, I simply go on and say, hey, today I want to create a post on AI and technology.
Yeah.
And I don't even give AI any of those other instructions anymore. Now, when I hit enter, it gives me all 4 of the social media posts
Yeah.
formatted as I've requested. Generally, it gives me all 30 of the index terms. So, to Trisha's point, AI will learn, memorize, and then actually integrate previous work into future work. So
Yeah.
that's why it's important for you to consistently use the voice that you want AI to output in, because as you give it more content, it will get better and better and better at actually imitating the voice that you're creating or training it to imitate.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's just so many tools out there that you can use, and you can end up, kind of fall in love with the one that works best for you. I love
That is true.
Perplexity as well.
Yes.
I think Perplexity is great. It gives
Yep.
you the research. It says this is where this information is coming from. So I use Perplexity a lot for research. I also use Gemini as well, because sometimes I just want to see the differences in the prompt. So I may share a prompt in ChatGPT or Perplexity, and then I share it in Gemini. I just
And
kind of want
see
to
the different
see like
answers.
the different answers.
Yep.
I think the other thing too is when you're creating images. That one I think gets a little tricky if you want it to sort of, Microsoft Designer. I was
Mhm.
using the other day to try and create images, and it's always fascinating to see, because I asked for it to like, hey, can you create some pictures that show, people of color who are working in a workshop setting or
Yep.
whatever. And it comes back, and I'm like, what is this? First of all, there was no people of color, and it didn't look like a workshop.
Yep.
I was just, and I kept trying, like, I was on it for like 20 minutes, and then I just gave up. I was like, man, this is annoying, So, there's still a lot of work that needs to
Yep.
be done on
Yep.
AI. It's definitely not perfect. So you kind of have to use it in different ways, use the different platforms to see which ones work for you to
Mhm.
achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve.
And Trish, can you give our listeners a little bit more information about some of the difference in those platforms? You talked about Gemini, Perplexity, etc. What kind of break down for them, kind of, or demystify like the different names out there, the different platforms, why they're different.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think we know that this AI boom in the last couple of years. First of all, AI has been around for a while, but now it's sort of really taken off. But we know there's so many companies now who want to be the first in the race. We know OpenAI, the company, they're the ones who are behind ChatGPT, but also Microsoft is, part owner of OpenAI.
Mhm,
We know Google Gemini, so everybody
mhm.
wants to be first,
Yep,
with their own AI product.
yep,
So, I think that I personally don't see a massive difference. I think what it comes down to, ironically, is marketing,
agreed,
and most people
agreed.
know about ChatGPT,
Agreed, agreed,
um,
which is the
you know,
market share leader right now. I mean,
it's just
ChatGPT was
exactly,
first to
right?
market, they were a market share leader. But to
Exactly.
Trisha's point, that market is gonna continue to evolve. There are a lot of
Exactly.
players in that space. If everybody remembers or thinks back to the last, big technological, revolution we had, which was cell phones,
Yeah. Yeah.
Apple kind of, blew up the space with the iPhone, and then
Right.
you had multiple players jump in afterwards, and now several
Yeah.
years, 10, 15 years later, you've got almost two big players, right? Android and Apple kind of duking it
Exactly.
out, and there's a couple of other big brands in the space. And so, similar to that, your AI engines will be kind of branded based on who their backers are, so to speak. And in some cases, what
Exactly.
data has been loaded into those specific
Right.
databases. And so, to Trisha's
Right.
point, there are some databases and AI platforms that are specifically designed for a certain type of information. So, if you're looking for more analytical, database, insight information. You have certain AI engines for that. If you're more interested in information around language or
Right.
around math and science, there are
Yeah.
databases that specialize in that. Now, it doesn't mean that any of those databases are mutually exclusive and cannot answer questions that the other ones can, which can be a
Yeah.
little confusing. But I think the bigger point to know, to Trisha's point, is for the most part, the engines themselves in terms of their features are brand agnostic. So whether you're on
Exactly.
Perplexity or on ChatGPT, you'll find that most of the functionality in terms of how to communicate with it and how you get output from it are pretty similar across platforms.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've noticed is the biggest difference is if you're trying to create images. I know Microsoft Designer I've used before.
Mhm.
That one gets a little bit tricky
It
when
does.
you talk about, like creating images, especially
Yep.
when you say, "Hey, black and brown people." It
Yep.
gets a little dicey.
Yep.
We know Canva. I use Canva a lot. And now Canva is now part of ChatGPT. So you
Mhm.
have that option to create something in Canva through ChatGPT,
Mhm.
which is great.
Mhm.
But for me, I tried it and it was super annoying. I was like,
Agreed.
this is driving me nuts. So I just use my Canva app to create what I
Yep.
want and tell what I want and call it a day.
Yep.
So even though those tools are out there, some of them ain't that great. You know,
No, and that's a
There
great point, Trish. I
you
mean, because
know?
that's a tool that a lot of us use, and Trish is actually hitting on something that a lot of founders are probably thinking to themselves, if I don't use anything else, I do use PowerPoint, I do use presentation tools like Canva.
Yeah,
And I think Trish and I are both big believers in the technology in and of itself. But
yeah,
frankly, in some applications, it hasn't quite yet hit the
yeah,
point of adoption where it is, very efficient to
yeah,
use, or even in some cases engaging. Sometimes it's just so frustrating to use in certain
yeah,
platforms that you just decide to do it yourself.
yeah,
But I would suggest, and I think you make a great point, it's another brand I would definitely recommend founders and brand owners to consider signing up for a paid account from if you don't have one, which is Canva. I know a lot of us
yes.
are probably just now becoming exposed to Canva, especially my corporate audience. So all of my
Mhm.
buddies and friends back in corporate America who are bound almost by contract to Microsoft products, mostly in a couple of few cases. Lucky
Yeah,
people have Apple products, but most of y'all are stuck on Microsoft products, which means
yeah,
the only presentation tool you've ever used for the majority of your career is PowerPoint. And when you
right.
get to Canva, you are going to lose your mind. And when you realize that somebody else actually came out with a tool that takes a lot of the features that you wish were in PowerPoint and they put them in Canva. So I would
That is
definitely
great.
recommend using it. And the other thing I would also say to Trisha's advice is don't think about AI as the main tool to use for the output for everything you need. right? So I love her advice, and I want really people to take it to heart about having Canva or having AI create the outline for the work that you want to create, and then you finishing the work, or as I like to say, you're putting the meat on the bones. You're having
Right.
AI is going to create the skeleton for what you're putting together, but then when you really finish it, it will be your own unique creation because you decided what the final content would
Right.
actually look like and feel like that you structured with AI, right? So I do think in Canva, one of the hacks that I would definitely recommend using is instead of always going into Canva with a pre kind of determined mindset about what your template's going to look like and what your deck is going to look like. To Trisha's point, I would first go into an AI tool, explain the goal of the presentation, meaning what are you trying to accomplish? What are you trying to get the listener to do? Explain that to AI and then ask AI to print out a structure for a PowerPoint presentation that you can then go build based on that guideline. So great advice there. Now, following
Yeah.
up that advice, what are some other, because I know one of the things we talked about in the last segment with you, and it's something I always hark on, which is measuring what you actually want to happen. So inspecting what you expect, right? And we're
Mhm.
not always great at looking at KPIs and looking at
Yeah.
key measurables, but in the
Yeah.
spirit of advising our founders on ways to use AI, how would
Yeah.
you advise our founders to think about it in terms of using AI from a metric standpoint to both look at metrics, think about
Yeah.
metrics, and follow metrics?
Yeah, for sure. You can absolutely use AI to analyze data. Obviously, you have to feed it the information, but to make the comparison or do A/B testing, you can use it for that. The tricky part, though, is especially when we're talking about data, is to obviously check your work. The other thing that I specifically use AI for is determining trends. What are the
Mm,
trends right now? What are the trends like for Black women in entrepreneurship?
mhm,
What's the trends like right now in the beauty and fashion space, as it pertains to women between the age of 25 and 35?
mhm,
So you can get very, very specific and granular with it,
mhm.
and it will give you that information. I would most likely use Perplexity for that because they will give you the
I love
sources of
that. Yep.
where they're pulling that information
Yep.
from,
Which is
um,
important,
which
right?
is
Right.
important.
Important when you're pulling it from
Yes.
AI. I think that's a great point, Trish. And
Yeah.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to make sure people understand having the sources of the data and validating that they were actual real sources is important. Trish
Yeah.
mentioned earlier in the conversation hallucination. If you
Yeah.
haven't heard of it, look the concept up and understand that AI will sometimes hallucinate data, meaning it will create fake data that
Yeah.
doesn't technically exist to support the request that you asked it to create. Can we hear that again? Having the sources of the data and validating that they were actual real sources is important. Trish
Yeah.
mentioned earlier in the conversation hallucination. If you
Yeah.
haven't heard of it, look the concept up and understand that AI will sometimes hallucinate data, meaning it will create fake data that
Yeah.
doesn't technically exist to support the request that you asked it to create. So,
Yeah.
in order to avoid it, you need to just double check that it actually pulled the data from a real example or a real issue. And I have definitely found specifically, and I want branded marketers to know if you use AI to get demographic information or socioeconomic information, you need to make sure that AI is not making it up. I have
Yeah.
definitely found that when you ask AI things like, hey, what is the target market for, and fill in the brand or name,
Yeah.
sometimes AI will just make up the target market. And when you go to
Yeah.
actually see if those percentages play out, they don't play out. So make sure you are looking at the sources of perplexity. I think is a great point because they will automatically put the link, the
Yeah.
hyperlink in the answer. So you can click on it and go look and make sure that
Exactly,
it was
exactly,
actually
which
happening.
is awesome,
Yep, it's great.
and I think also too, using AI for marketing, customer insights, if you're trying to reach a new customer, maybe getting insights about who that customer is, that demographic.
Yep.
What do they drive? Where would they
Yep.
live? What type of clothes they wear? Who would they hang out with? That sort of thing. You can get really, really deep into that information, those
Mhm.
specifics that you would need to help you to drive a marketing strategy that you may have, especially if you have a business that is driven by customers, a product that you're trying to sell, whether, tangible or not, you need to know who your ideal customer is. And AI can definitely help you with that. I think that also too, when we talk about social media, all the social platforms have an element of AI built
Mhm.
into it already. It
Mhm.
is the case on LinkedIn. If you go to start a post on LinkedIn, you will see where it says, "Would you like AI to write the post for you?"
Yeah.
I've never used it because it freaks me out, because I'm like,
Yep.
no, man, I don't need you to write this for me, whatever.
Right.
But if you're a person who's like, oh, I don't know what to write, yeah, maybe, it's a great thing to help you start. TikTok as well. TikTok is still, the
Yep.
largest app right
Yep.
now, on the planet.
Yep.
Well, at least
And
from the
definitely in
states.
branding.
Yeah, and it has, I know it has a new marketing platform now.
Yep.
They call it Symphony,
Mhm.
well, where, it basically will help, brands to create virtual influencers for it.
Mhm.
So you
Mhm.
can plug in all this information, and it'll create a virtual influencer for you. So, which is great if you're a small brand and you can't afford to pay
Exactly.
for, a creator or influencer, for a campaign, and you're like, hey, it's holiday season is coming up. I need to have, like, more boots on the ground, more people talking about my product. Then you can use Symphony in TikTok to create a virtual. Now, the thing is, this is something that's new, that's coming to TikTok. They recently launched it, like, within a week
Yep.
or two.
Yep. The last
But
couple of weeks. Yep.
yeah, but China's been doing it. China's
Mhm.
already been doing it,
Mhm.
that these, virtual, influencers, they already exist. It's already being done.
Yep.
So when we talk about the future and what's possible with AI, I'm here to tell you the future is here. It is
I love
here.
that.
So, it behooves all of us who are entrepreneurs, who are trying to, make sure our business stay relevant, make sure that we drive revenue, and make sure that as many people in our key demographic knows about our business. You have to realize that AI can help you to basically achieve all the goals that you have in mind. You no longer have to do this by yourself, basically, you
That's
know.
so real. So true, Trish. Now, just following up on that, given the just the vast amount of knowledge you have on this topic and what you're currently seeing in the marketplace, and you kind of hinted to it there a couple of minutes ago. What do you see on the horizon on your own futuristic crystal ball of AI and personal branding? Like, where would you say the movement is going, and what would you tell our audience to look out for
Yeah.
in the near future?
Yeah, also too, I love sort of predicting where AI will go, but I also always say, with a bit of caution, with technology, this type of technology, we need to approach it with caution.
For
But
that
I think
visit, right? That visit that you expected when they show up, you can remind them that
exactly.
I've been nice to you the whole time. I've been saying yes, sir, and no, sir. Just let me
Exactly.
know, man.
Please don't kill me because I've been real nice, you know. So, I think that as business owners and small business owners, I think it's important to remember this, that the future of AI, as I said before, is here. Now, you kind of have to sit with yourself, as my therapist says, sit with yourself. How do you want AI to help you? And what I
Mhm,
see AI helping us is in the day-to-day task. It's going to get even more so. I
mhm.
mean, some of us are already talking to AI already, whether you're talking to Alexa or,
Yep.
whatever.
Theory.
That's
Yep.
AI. It's already
Siri.
happening.
Yep.
So you utilize it. And when I think about the future of AI, what I see is that, a lot of this AI is not gonna be in front of our screens anymore. They're gonna be like walking around our homes or our companies, helping us, in some way. So I think that when you are thinking about like, okay, how can I use this? Look at it through the lens of how can it improve my business and how it can improve my life. And I think that AI has that ability to do that. And as we
Definitely.
look to the future, I think one, we should be approaching it with caution because, it's like unfortunately having a loaded gun in a room full of,
Mhm.
people. You know,
5-year-olds.
yeah, it's
5-year-olds, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
it's not something that we should be very
Yep.
cavalier about. We need to
Yep.
be very mindful of it. So
Yep.
I think what I would say to anybody who's using AI is to be mindful, to your point, how you're using it and why you're using it. Because we are, as human beings right now, we are training the future of AI, right?
Mhm.
AI
Mhm.
right now is in elementary school, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And we're their teachers.
Yep.
So, how you use AI today is going to be a direct reflection in the next 2 to 5 years of what it becomes
I
because
love
it's
that.
evolving.
Whoa. We need to hear that one more time.
What I would say to anybody who's using AI is to be mindful, to your point, how you're using it and why you're using it. Because we are, as human beings right now, we are training the future of AI, right?
Mhm.
AI
Mhm.
right now is in elementary school, right?
Mhm. Yep.
And we're their teachers.
Yep.
So, how you use AI today is going to be a direct reflection in the next 2 to 5 years of what it becomes
I
because
love
it's
that.
evolving. And I think it's evolving maybe a little too fast, you know?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's at rapid pace, and
Yep.
that's what makes me nervous is the pace at which this is evolving. So we have to take care of this technology as it's growing. It's like a fast growing baby. You're
That's
like, "Oh, you
exactly
were
right.
1 yesterday and now you're 10? What is
That's right.
happening?"
It's like a
You know?
gremlin, right? Like, you remember how fast
Yeah.
gremlins grew, right? Like, they popped off
Yeah.
from Mogwai's back one night, and then 3 weeks later, right, they're taking over the
Yeah.
world, and I think this
It's
is a very
true.
similar, phenomenon. I think what Trish and I are both saying, not to fear monger, we're not trying to scare people, but we
No.
are saying that there is a revolution happening, and if you're
Yeah.
not involved in it, if you're not aware of it, you first need to become aware of it, and hopefully this show will help you along that journey. But then secondarily, what you see Trish and I have always already done and are continuing to do, which is we're in that stream. We're using it. We're figuring out where it doesn't apply in our lives and our brands and our businesses and where it does. And I strongly encourage our listeners and our viewers to do the same thing. Get out there and try it, use it, engage it. And for our brand owners and founders, especially those of color,
Yeah.
this is one of those moments in history where you have an opportunity to get ahead, to actually
Yeah.
jump forward in the evolution of your own business. Forget everybody else. Don't listen to what everybody else is doing. If you just
Yeah.
think about your business, your brand, AI represents a once in a lifetime opportunity for you to systematically and fundamentally accelerate the growth of your brand and your business. And a lot of you are saying, "Ah, that sounds great, Dana. We everybody's saying that, blah blah blah." Well, I'm going to give you one key example, one key point, and then you can take that point and run with it. But if you think about it from this standpoint, when I talk to founders and brand owners, one of the main complaints I hear when I ask, "Why isn't your business successful? Why aren't you selling more? Why aren't you making more money?" I
Yeah.
hear not enough people know about my business, Dana. Not enough people know about my brand. If
Yeah.
more people knew, Dana, what I could do or what my brand could do for them, man, I would be in it, right?
Yeah.
AI now gives you an opportunity, little bitty you, without this big advertising budget, without all of these connections in media, without all of these opportunities to get influencers to pick up your brand or service and pump it out to the rest of the world. You now can use AI as an equalizer because AI can help generate the content, which
Mhm.
in an efficient world will then allow you to post more. It can
Yeah.
also help the quality of the content you're generating,
Yeah.
including your sales materials.
Yeah.
including your sales decks, as Trisha and I discussed. So there's so many ways in which AI can make you a more efficient communicator. And if it
Mm.
makes you a more efficient communicator, it would stand to reason that you will probably get better at communicating what it is you want to communicate, which for most of
Yes.
you who own a business or a brand is, hey, I've got this great service. I got this great brand. Please come check it out. So,
Yeah.
with that, I would say first, Trish, thank you again for coming on the show and sharing your just over the top knowledge about everything that is
Yeah.
personal branding and AI. And before we go, I want to always allow our audience, which I know we'll have plenty of people who want to learn more about you, who want to find ways to work directly with you, and shoot, people who probably want to hire you. So, how do people find Trish Lindo? Give them your socials and all the links and things they need to know about.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Dana. I really appreciate this conversation. And before I share where you can find me, hmm, I do want to say that what I think that AI has the opportunity is to level the playing field, right? And I think that this is an opportunity not only for Black and Brown people and people of color, but also for people who are experiencing disabilities,
Mhm,
who may have felt that the way
mhm,
society is structured is not set. They're not set up for success. But
mhm.
AI will, I think, is at a point where it can help to level that playing field.
Mhm.
Companies such as Anthropic, is creating AI that will move the cursor across the screen. It'll take
Wow,
direction. They're
wow,
calling it Claude. I think it's Claude 3.5.
wow.
So if you're somebody who has a
Mhm,
disability, or you're
mhm.
like, hey, I can't type, you have this technology that is evolving. It's still experimental, but it's out there. So
Wow,
I think when we're thinking about the future, we think about the inclusivity of the future
I love
and
that.
what's possible for all of us.
I
So with
love that.
that said, where you can find me is just trishlindo.com. That's my website,
Yeah.
trishlindo.com. And you can always find me on LinkedIn, Trish Lindo. I believe I'm the only one because I asked AI to remove the others.
Well, if
So
she's not the only one, she's the best one. You can take that recommendation from me. So
I mean,
find the best Trish Lindo on LinkedIn. I think she's the
I
only one as well,
mean,
but trust
yeah.
me, if you don't find her, if there's two, pick this one. She's the best one.
Thank you, thank you. So yeah, and I mean, I'm Googleable as well.
Yeah.
I'm also on Instagram under Trish Lindo Style. I love fashion and beauty, and I travel as well, so I do all the things. But if you're looking for someone to help with personal branding, I work with organizations and companies to help their employees to level up on LinkedIn. I give great tips and advice, insider advice, because I used to
Yeah.
work at LinkedIn, of how you can be great and how to win on LinkedIn. So
I
yeah,
love
but
that.
you can find me, Trish Lindo. Thanks for having me, Dana.
Thank you, Trish, for being on the show. And again, audience, look her up. She is not playing. She is an expert in all things personal branding. If you want to get your LinkedIn game tight, Trish is the person. And if you doubt what I'm saying, check out her profile. Just as a quick assignment after the show, go look up Trish Lindo on LinkedIn and have a quick visual masterclass on how to actually set up a profile that tells you exactly what that person is about and exactly what you can expect when you actually engage with that person. And
Yeah.
Trisha's profile definitely does that. So once again, Trish, I cannot say enough how much I have been waiting to have you on the show again and share this information. I can't wait to have you on again. I know there's several other areas. We haven't even gotten into the whole fashion space as well. So I definitely have to have you come back. That's one of the other verticals that the brand blueprint spends a little time in. So we look forward to you returning to the show. But until then, thanks again. And we are going to be excited to watch all of the great work that you're going to be doing in the personal branding space over the years to come.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dana. And thank you, everyone who's listening. I appreciate you all.
All right. Thanks again. Well, listen, for all of our listeners and followers, we appreciate you tuning in for another great episode of the Brand Blueprint. My name is Dana Ammons. I'm your host and founder. And if you need additional information, you want to get additional follow up information and find out a little bit more about some of the tips and the recommendations that were shared in this episode, you can go out to the brandblueprint.biz, not .com, because we're about that biz. So .biz, and you'll find plenty of extra material content, tips and tricks from this episode. Thanks again and have a great one. Thanks for joining us on the Brand Blueprint journey. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms to stay updated. Watch the full episodes on our YouTube channel for an in-depth experience. Don't forget to subscribe to our website at thebrandblueprint.biz for exclusive content and materials. We're everywhere you need us to be.